Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be answering a question from our audience. The question is, how can we effectively address and overcome the racial divide in America when it seems to be perpetuated and exacerbated by powerful interest groups? And I really have four main points for you here. The first one is to simply be aware that there is well, two things to be aware of. One is that there is a racial divide in America. And two is that the racial divide in America is perpetuated by these powerful interest groups. And so people should be aware that there's ongoing racial tensions because that might help you decide how to act in a given circumstance, make sure that your safety is taken into consideration, and then also just be aware that that is being fomented by people. And so, whenever possible, you should be considerate and compassionate about the fact that this racial tension, to at least a certain degree, is fomented by those powerful interest groups. And so that goes to the second point, which is be compassionate about this fact. These tensions are not entirely natural. It's somewhat natural because of the fact that people do tend to split into groups whenever any differentiating factor tends to occur. But in this specific instance, we've looked at in prior videos, we've looked at the fact that racial tensions were going down in the 90s and early 2000s, but then the fomentation of tensions did occur largely due to media and entertainment perpetuating negative stereotypes, perpetuating tensions between various groups, and that perpetuation of tensions has affected individuals. It has made individuals more hostile, more aggressive towards each other based off of racial and ethnic divisions. And so, whenever the opportunity presents itself, not only be aware that this is not any individual's fault, but be compassionate that it is people are not acting entirely rationally when making these decisions about being racially insensitive, being racially hostile towards other people. The third point I would like to make on how to effectively address and overcome the racial divide is just be realistic. I hate to put it like this, but I did leave the United States because I noticed ongoing tensions, ongoing problems that I thought were probably going to escalate given the direction I saw America heading. And so just be realistic about how things are going, and be realistic that if you go to an area that is different from yourself in some ways, that because these fomentations of tensions and hostilities, that could put you at increased risk. There are certain parts of America that I would just not go because I am a lighter skinned individual and it would be dangerous for me to go to those parts of the country. And so just being aware of that, be realistic that there are certain dangers given the heightened racial tensions in America. There was I can't remember the person's name, but in the LA race riots back in the 90s, there was a person that was taken out of his truck and beaten nearly to death. He has permanent injuries due to that. And that happened in a lot of different instances. So just be realistic about what could potentially occur and don't put yourself in unsafe situations. I've noticed that people have thought that just because they were a good person, that other people would be a good person and not be hostile to them in return. And that's not necessarily how it works, because people don't take time to assess the situation that fully before they act hostile and aggressive if they have animosity towards you based off of characteristics not necessarily under your control, such as race. And so just be realistic about the situation, and be realistic about how to act and how to stay safe in various situations. And then the final piece of advice I would give you is to I'd also say be realistic in the sense that any individual cannot really change the problems that are occurring in society. And so media and entertainment is a huge propaganda apparatus and all of it is blaring nonstop, that people should be divided. There should be tensions, especially things like racial and religious tensions. And due to that, any one individual really cannot solve the problem. But I obviously think that individual voices do matter and can help to a certain extent, which is why I am on various platforms talking about my message and talking about how these divisions are due to powerful interest groups and not individuals. And so be realistic that yes, you can have an impact, but I wouldn't recommend going into it with the idea that you specifically are going to be the one to defeat the media and entertainment apparatus that is spewing propaganda. And last point is be prepared. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, that there are going to be very unsafe situations given the racial divides, the racial tensions, the increasing instances of people attacking each other for their differences within society. Just be prepared to defend yourself, your family. No obvious, everything should be in self-defense. No obviously aggressive actions in any of those circumstances. But you just have to be prepared. If the media and entertainment industry is fomenting these tensions and people have hostility towards you for reasons outside of your control, just be as prepared as possible for these situations. And I talk about this a lot, but America is not propped up based off of any shared beliefs anymore. And so when the bread and circus ends, when people can't really afford food and they're not entertained by their sports ball anymore and there's not those distractions, then people are going to become really, really upset. Because they don't have any shared beliefs. They don't have anything in common with their fellow man. And so there's nothing really propping the country together or propping the country up and keeping the country together, aside from that bread and circus that's going on, which seems to be quickly going away. So just prepare yourself as much as possible. And if, like me, leaving the country seems like a good idea, I would strongly recommend it. I've had a good experience so far. People are far less hostile. And I'll get into this in future videos, but as a straight white Christian male, there was extreme amounts of hostility, particularly in academia, towards straight white Christian males. And you just don't notice that type of thing. It doesn't occur in the part of the world that I'm currently at, but it was obviously extremely noticeable in the United States. And so just be prepared in whatever way, shape, or form that takes. Obviously, for me, that meant leaving the United States. And so hopefully these 4 points answer your question about how can we effectively address and overcome the racial divide in America when it seems to be perpetuated and exacerbated by powerful interests. First is be aware. Second, be compassionate. Third, be realistic. And fourth, be prepared. And so that's what I will leave you with. And I hope you have a good rest of the day. We will be back with other segments very soon. Thank you and have a good day.